Go live here. Go live here. Record that there. As everything starts popping on, welcome to Black Coffee Conversation. And things are going to be recorded on iHeart, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, all those YouTube channels. And if anyone have any questions that's out there that's listening, keep it to your damn self because we having a conversation. Because I actually, I've been thinking about this question for a week now, brothers, and it's actually had me not sleeping well.
Mm.
And I wanted to bring it to, since it's almost like when we have our conversations. Oh, by the way, I'll say this real quick. I did not know that this is the unicorn. Black men having conversations about real issues and actually having some dialogue without cursing each other out. I have had people inbox me like, man, watching you brothers have a talk, it is actually amazing. Have you guys gotten that feedback at all yourself?
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that feedback?
I think all we missing is the barbers.
Like,
All we missing is the barbers. Like if you can
these are
get,
barber chairs, right?
yeah, my edge is messed up because I'm getting older. So
Yeah.
You need a line, right? You need to
I
get
do.
lined up, right?
and that line is running faster than I do now. So
That's funny.
That's funny. That's true, but that's funny. That's funny. So the question I have is, it seems it may be simple, but do you think civil rights messed up the Black community? Do you think the civil rights, in not what they were fighting for, but the actual like designation like civil rights, do you think that hurt Black America?
What part of the civil rights? Because you talking about like the Fair Housing Act, you talking about the Voting Act, talking about discrimination. So what part of it? The whole thing, or just a particular part of it?
I'm thinking about all of it, like, because it seemed like what there has been some Blacks have said that it had left Black people victimized and left them victims
I think they got it wrong.
that they cling on to.
Yeah, I think they got it wrong. The whole entire basis of civil rights is, in my opinion, is we were just fighting to be equal under the Constitution. We wanted to have all the rights as Americans had and not be treated as second-class citizens. Other than that, I think, from the aspect where you had certain people who more or less went, I want to say went awry of our culture, and seems as though that they were doing things that were not in the best interest of Black people. I think that's where it kind of became a problem, where it started those type of divisions and the deterioration of the village itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think also like I wish who's the dude from Fargo? I forgot his name.
Ryan Larry.
Yeah. Listen, I wish he was on because this is where history really plays a part, right? And we gotta know our history. Out of slavery came Reconstruction. Right? This is when you had Black wealth exploding, right? As a result of that came Jim Crow, right? So that huge gap between Jim Crow and like civil rights, there was a huge wealth gap in the country. Like after civil rights, Blacks started making gains in that wealth gap. And then I don't want to call it a party, but people started fighting against that. This is why like Nixon got elected. This is why Reagan came in, because you saw Black wealth started to rise. And it started basically intimidating other people. And that's really what this whole fight is about.
And didn't they, Malik, didn't they introduce that Southern strategy?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And that was where they redirected roads and redirected money away from the community, so it actually drew money out of the community, so it depleted them, like highways going through black streets,
Black communities.
black communities.
Listen,
Oh, well, it was funny. We was talking about barbershop talk. I held one of the elder gentlemen in the barbershop say that one day. It wasn't. He said desegregation. Desegregation hurt our communities. Basically, by we thinking white is right. We wanted to go across the tracks and purchase things because we thought that it was better because we was kept away from those things for so long. But then we want to go across the tracks, get the plumbing, get the carpentry, because we thought our stuff wasn't good enough anymore. So that was part. I don't say civil rights per se, but desegregation, yeah, definitely. So that's what some of the elders around this area say, and I'm in North Carolina.
But desegregation and civil rights, I'm not sure should they go together or because they lump together.
Right. And like I said, I think that's why I was saying the desegregation part.
Right.
Because like I said, that kind of led to the civil rights, everything, all of that kind of meshed together in a sense.
Well, and I would just agree with it in that it wasn't actually civil rights.
Right.
It was the movement, right, that caused people to really move away from what civil rights was trying to do from a comprehensive standpoint. And so because I wasn't what I would say healed, we're coming out of a space where we don't have opportunities. And if you're not consciously in a space where you are not really leveraging that opportunity that civil rights was going to provide, and you're chasing, what's the word I want to use? Let's say this, you're not comfortable in who you are. And so you are measuring yourself not against your community, but against success being leaving out. And when we look at prior to civil rights and the civil rights movement, we had our doctors in our community. We had our attorneys in our community. That's when we were truly a village. And so I think it was the late great ancestor Malcolm X who said, if you take any coffee and you mix that coffee with the creamer and the milk, you're taking away from the power and the potency of the coffee. And so from that perspective, I see where not actually civil rights, but just the movement, because people were disorganized and they felt like they had this opportunity. So everybody run into the four corners of the universe as opposed to us staying together, united. And so from that standpoint, that's where I see your question as actually being something that actually hurt us in that sense. And Brother Means just said something about even when we look at economics, realistically, if you go back and you do the math, we ain't doing no better right now than we was doing back then.
No.
Yeah, good point.
Matter of fact, we know from the statistics that we're not gaining any ground. So they keep saying that we need to educate, we need to mentor, which we're doing, and we're talking about it. But it seems like every time we talk about it, we're not moving. We're not getting. Why aren't we gaining any ground? We're not creating. We're not creating. So that's why I said civil rights hurt us, because so many blacks feel victimized. Like it's because of this I can't do.
So the one thing I started thinking about. So I'm gonna go back to slavery. There was a discussion going on right before slaves were freed, whether they were going to ship all the slaves back to Africa, right? Or they were going to allow them to stay in the United States, right? A group of prominent Black men leaders at the time went to the president and said, listen, we fought real hard. We want to stay in the United States, right? And I kind of look at that and say, okay, what was the better decision? Should we have stayed or should we have gone? And then you start looking at Black, African American or Black countries, Haiti, Africa's, and you don't see the development. You see the systematic, the repression of those countries. So you look at it in the United States, we had Black communities, right, that were thriving. And what happened, it was a systematic effort to like break those communities up. Highways, were like, developed through them. They were crushed. You go back to Greenwood and other places like that. So I like the question, but I think it's deeper. It's always systematic. It's not like so surface. And it doesn't really come down to us. I know growing up, I was always taught about the Black dollar and how much it circulates in our community, right? And making sure that dollar circulates in our community. So we were born with it, but we got all of these other forces that are working against us. Some are seen and some are unseen.
Mhm.
True.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And
My focus is on the mindset. Why is it that, like you were talking about, Kelly, about the village aspect? Once we did have our people actually making a little bit of money, why is it that they felt like they needed to move away from the neighborhood? Those type of things. And that's where our focus was. So if this was about civil rights and bringing up one another in that aspect, I think they should have just stayed there, right there in the neighborhood, to kept things going.
But they didn't.
Oh, I
But
know.
you know why though? Like redlining, you guys are familiar with redlining.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so if I'm a prominent doctor, right, obviously I want to live a certain life, but I can't get those services in my Black community.
Mhm.
So you want to move out to get better services, better, education for your kids, and it was systematic in place that, prevented you from doing that in your community. That's why
Right.
gentrification right now is so prominent, because you see white people moving into our communities, right? And all the services come with them. You're able to start, getting loans from the bank to
Mhm.
improve your property, to, establish other establishments, other businesses in that community. I know in Bed-Stuy, right, growing up in the 80s, right, it didn't look the way it looks now. Now you drive through there, you see organic markets and, coffee shops.
Whole Foods.
Yeah, exactly. Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And we know Black people as a whole are consumers. So they would have definitely, purchased in that neighborhood. But you got to ask yourself, how come those stores weren't there? How come the money wasn't there to establish those stores?
I mean, it's not a joke, but if you see a Starbucks, the Black population's gone down.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
It's almost comical, but if you see the Starbucks going up, the Black population's gone down, and more
Right.
people coming in.
Right.
It's almost like that's the sign.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny about Starbucks you mentioned there, Doc, because I remember Shaquille O'Neal, he had a stock in Starbucks. And I remember he wanted to open up a Starbucks in Harlem. And they came to him and he was like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. Black people don't drink coffee. That was the mindset there, which people didn't know that. But I think in terms of this conversation, a lot of it time is divide and conquer, like you seen in a Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, how that division went down. It was Black wealth that was created there. But again, when you have those outside forces trying to take that once what we have, it's kind of like that divide and conquer effect on it. So we still, we're still like getting the crust of that, because of things like that, places that were thriving, like in Tulsa, Oklahoma, at the Black Wall Street.
But they got bombed. I mean, they bombed them.
They got bombed. Nobody was convicted of anything. Like no one got, convicted of anything, which is crazy. I mean, that's just like a systemic racism thing right there, and we still seeing the effects, the residue of that to this day.
But listen, Tulsa, Oklahoma was just one place. There were other communities around the country, other Black communities that were thriving. I mean to say that they were thriving, and systematically they were destroyed. Like 60 Minutes just had this report last Sunday about a Black community in Alabama
Yeah.
right? And they could trace their ancestors back to slavery,
Mhm.
right? And after slavery, they were thriving. And what happened? Highways were built through their communities. You know, listen, South Carolina, Hilton Head, South Carolina, right, was a black community, right? And what happened? Now, once they realized like white people wanted to be on the beach, right, wanted to be near the beach, they drove a lot of those people out that that community. So land ownership is huge too. That's the other thing too. Like we have to invest in like property and land. And growing up, that's the other thing that we were taught. Like, listen, my grandfather, my great grandfather was worked for the railroad, right? And most black middle class black men, that's what they did. They worked for those railroads and they brought that money home. He bought 100 acres in Farmville, Virginia, right? And he wanted to pass it down to his children. And at some point, somebody got tired of paying the taxes because it was his land, right? And they decided to start selling off his land, 100 acres, right? You go through Farmville now, it's developed. There's a university where his property used to be. It's like we didn't, like my mother told me this growing up, like the older generation, it was their responsibility to like instill those skills and values in that next generation. So they held on to what was established. I don't know if that happened.
It
Right.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. I mean, even when you talk about the railroad, a lot of those guys, what do they call these?
The Pullman.
Georges, right?
Yeah.
They're all the name as a porter was a George,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And you're right, they didn't care about what you were calling them because they brought that money back to the community. They brought it home, and they bought that land. They bought those houses. They bought the jobs. But I'm looking at so much where you talk to a black person who isn't thriving, and they will throw a system card on there saying it's because of.
Right.
Yeah. You know what's gonna be it? Yep.
And that's what I came up with the civil rights question. Like, if we didn't have the civil rights, could we ever have played? Because we were going to thrive. You believe? How about go? Do you believe the blacks would have thrived anyway if the civil rights were never put into the courts?
I don't.
You don't think
Think
so?
about this. In the 70s, right? It's when like the black middle class was really established, when black people started getting government jobs and city jobs,
Okay.
right? Like, listen, a place like Rosedale, Queens, and Cambridge Heights, Queens,
Yeah.
black middle class. Most of those people were working class people. They worked for transit or sanitation or police officers. And that stuff wouldn't happen if it wasn't for civil rights.
Okay.
And then they were able to send their children to college, right? And reestablish, basically that middle class. And realistically, think about the 80s, the Reagan 80s, when crack came in, that kind of, that destroyed a lot of our communities as well.
No doubt.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. No doubt.
It was brought up that how we know that the government was bringing in crack into the black communities and allowing these drug dealers to sell for them, so that they take that crack cocaine money out of the community so they can use it for the things they were doing overseas.
Iran Contra, yep.
Okay, I didn't want to say yeah, but that's exactly, because they were using that money for that.
Mhm.
Hey, listen, there's a documentary on Showtime right now, the Reagan years, and it kind of breaks down Ronald Reagan and his presidency, and during his presidency, he cut a lot of those programs that were helping like minority communities, disenfranchised communities, and that has a ripple effect now.
Yeah. Definitely. Guys, we talk, everything is like surrounded around economics.
Right, you got a Wi-Fi issue
about stuff too, and it's gonna be interesting. Like with this administration, obviously COVID is an issue. When everybody was campaigning, can you guys hear me now? I'm having my internet. You guys hear me?
Yeah, it's coming. You're
It's
breaking.
spotty.
All right. okay. So yeah, I was just
It's breaking up.
the main
You gotta
issue.
text it. We
And I
can't
know
hear you.
COVID, you know, administration going with COVID, but again, can't hear me. All right, go to the next person.
Hey, my question is to you brothers is, you know, we have a lot of money within our communities. Why is it that we haven't been pooling our resources together to go ahead and invest once again in our own neighborhoods to make certain things happen? We have the capital. We can do it. I mean, we have Black millionaires, Black billionaires doing their thing. So why is it that we as a people can't come together and invest? I mean, because you'll see every other culture coming into this country and they're investing together, becoming like closed societies, investing within their little nucleus here, opening up restaurants, other types of shops and everything. And the money still circulates within there. But for some reason, we can't seem sometimes to get together on those type of issues.
Well, I read this book called Triple Package, and it kind of touches on that. So after everything was said and done, at first we had this, common enemy, and we had to attain these rights and attain equality. But then shortly after that, what was the goal? What was the goal? What were we reaching for after that? There have been many people. I mean, who's a rapper that just started a bank?
Killer Mike.
Yeah, Killer Mike just started a bank.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots of people invested. I put some money in there just because. But you don't see, not everybody has those same goals. So with that freedom came the spread of everything. I want this, I want this, I want this. And that kind of just diluted the Black thought of what equality and success and all those things were. Because when we received those rights, and yes, we haven't received all of them, but when we received those rights, we were free to go out and explore. And the thing you got to remember is, and my wife's Caucasian, so we talk about this all the time. When her family was doling out land to each other, like my family was just getting off of slavery. And when her family was thinking about mutual funds, like my family was in the Great Migration. I mean, it's real. So we are centuries back from everybody. We get this newfound wealth and we spend it. I mean, I just bought the Jordan 9s right now. Like I got this newfound wealth and I just spend it, because whites are a generation or two removed from that. They are accumulating and doing things. And so other people, they come across seas and they start accumulating things too. But us, since we had that quote unquote freedom, we're free to do whatever we want. We're free to strive for whatever we want. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is, yes, it's saying that you have to move out of the community to do something and then go back and help your community. But you're still dealing with those mindsets, which, that's what Russ said, like Russ and Wes, we're still dealing with those mindsets. You have some people that their idea of success is not leaving that community. It's doing something else. So even if you do reach your hand back, they're like, nah, I'm good. I'm good right here. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like finding out what is that next step for us. And I always say, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, I always say we're still waiting for Martin. We're still waiting. We're waiting for that one person to get behind. And so when we thought, as a community, not individuals, when we thought that was Obama, we were really let down when we found out what people can do, what the system can do. The system can push him out. The system can not let anything that he puts on the desk get voted in. And we were really, really upset by that. And that kind of put us a step back because we were still waiting for that one person. We said, well, damn, it wasn't Obama. Who else is it going to be? So it's really deep, and it's the facets are crazy just looking at it.
You know what? both actually Malik, Woodsy, and West. And I'm listening to this, man. And the first thing for me is the point starts at when we get to the points of the civil rights movement. We're coming out of slavery, but we came out of slavery, and let's be real, we never even healed. So the late great sister, not great, the great sister Joy DeGruy talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? So if we never get to the point where we can heal, this is why when we get all these new opportunities, we like a kid who just got a whole bag of candy, no direction, gonna be all over the place. And then we have the systems and institutions, to Malik's point earlier, right? These systems and institutions are doing exactly what they were designed to do. They're not broken. They was written by older white males to disenfranchise and exploit Black people, women. I don't care what denomination, whether you Black, white, Latino, it was based on them. And so that's another part of the problem. And then it's a guy by the name of Brian Reeves from the Brookings Institute. And he talks about monopoly. And was it you kind of went to? It's like getting on a monopoly board 400 years late. We ain't getting no properties because all the prime properties already bought up.
Right.
But Kelly, the problem we have is if I have a property, right? And I bet all you entrepreneurs and you educated people know this. If I go to certain X amount of Black people, they're like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. What do you mean you're not gonna do that? Why would you do that? Like, what is your problem?
Trust.
Hey, can I mention this?
That's a simple word. I mean, that's where our community has, we could go way back and dig deep, but right now it's just a trust issue. We don't trust our brothers. We don't trust the guy that sit beside you because we, like you said, we haven't healed. We still in a division state within our communities. We don't want that brother. If both of us got a Cadillac, he got an Escalade, he got an STS. Because I have the Escalade, he's envious of what I have. So we don't trust each other to formulate these businesses and these big collaborations to obtain those properties, those big, those large buildings and things that we could just collaborate, put our monies together and go venture out and do those things.
Exactly.
Prime example here in Eastern North Carolina, they had $100 million project here in Eastern North Carolina. I know of at least about 10 contractors that probably could have put their resources together to complete this job. One did flooring, one did concrete, one did everything to put this project together. It didn't happen. Two lighter skinned companies put their resources together. One did asphalt, the other did concrete. They put their resources together and got this contract. Like I said, we just can't sit to the table and worry about, what someone's eating. We're worried about who's gonna get the breast, who's gonna get the leg, who's gonna get, who's gonna get a piece of the pie. That's the problem.
Hey, so look, there's a group, 19 families got together and bought 100 acres outside of Atlanta. Right? So there are Black people out there who are doing it. Right? So I agree, like that has been the mindset and we haven't healed. But I feel like there's a new generation that are like seeing the mistakes from the past and learning from it and doing something different.
But Malik, it's not a but. And I know about the story. And when you said about the family in Alabama, it's the town called Africa, right?
Yes. Yeah. Africa town.
And I was remembering this something I read about them. They actually traced all their ancestors back to this one ship, right?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
What was the name of that ship? I'm not going to remember.
Yeah, it's on 60 Minutes. So if you're interested, 60 Minutes. It was on this past Sunday.
But the family those 19 families, my question is I'm pretty sure they asked more than 19, right? And why only 19? Because if they had asked me in Maryland, I would have been like, matter of fact, I'm looked them up and I've reached out to them going, you need more. Like, is there more? Because I think I like to do that also. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And here's the other question: is if we have so many of these facets, we have well, like Ricky says, we're waiting on the Black Superman.
Right.
We have trust issues.
Mhm.
Like Kelly says, we are in post-traumatic stress disorder,
Mhm.
and then we have lack of education. We try to touch on these things, and yet we still can't close our fists.
Yeah, but I mean, you say it all the time, Doc. Like those are characteristics of somebody living in survival mode. So you got a group of people that are living in survival mode. Those 5 things that you said, that's straight up. Like that's
Right.
what it is. And so then you start
Mhm.
getting into what Charlemagne said with the trust issues. And then you start getting into what Malik says was, the families or whatever. But that's going to be interpreted by an outsider as exclusivity. So then they're going to be like, oh, look at them sedity Negroes. Like they went, they're both, you know what I mean? So that's where we are right now, because we can't,
Mhm.
it's absolutely nuts. When I moved into town, I had a person come up to me, and I have one of the biggest yards in town, and it was a mistake. I just ended up with more land. Okay, fine. Within the city, I had a person come up to me and he wanted 20 yards of my land, and I went in the house and I talked to my wife about it, and she's like, no. And I'm like, well, he's offering a pretty penny, like whatever. She goes, you'll never get that land back. Plus, your ancestors been working for that land for I don't know how long. 40 acres and a mule's what she said. I said, damn, look at that. You know what I mean? It's just, that's the Caucasian lady saying 40 acres and a mule to a black guy. And I'm thinking, damn, it's just, it's one of those things where, yeah, we are, and this isn't going to sound right, we are immature as a people because we haven't had that establishment yet to what we can attain to and what we should attain to. If you take a group of people and make them feel less than, they're going to fight amongst themselves for the riches. I mean, that's just how it is. If you give them very little, then they're going to fight each other for scraps.
Crabs in a barrel mentality.
Crabs in the barrel.
Yeah.
But we only use that for our race, only for the black race.
Mhm.
And here's what's crazy, Malik. You know why every revolution of the black uprising has failed? Is because a black told them. It wasn't because it got drafted by the outside community. Someone inside the community was like, I'll help you. They turned on each other. Every time a black person had an uprising, someone set them up.
Well, let me ask this question, because from that same book, or from that same author, a different book, I think it was Amy Chua, but tell me so we saying black people don't do that, but tell me another race where there isn't a strict confine on what success is, and that was made by the older generation. So if you look at Indians, right, from India, so come over, and I know that a lot of them have this structure, and it is a rigorous structure.
Yeah.
If you become a doctor, because doctor, lawyer, that's the ultimate height of success. I mean, they have said, look, this civilization holds doctors and lawyers to high esteem. So like, that's what you're going to become. You better not mess up in school or whatever, because you got 4 brothers and sisters. And when you become a doctor, you're paying for their college education. And I mean, there are strict confines. Now tell me of those that are successful, don't have those strict confines that are strict confinement that is set up by the older generation.
Yeah. You know what the other thing though, I think they're focusing on race and they should be focused on like culture and what do we all have in common. So for instance, if we talk about like the Jewish race, they grew up in a system, they have that religious, you know, culture that they all, you know, adhere to. So there's certain like guidelines and procedures that they all adhere to. Same thing in like the Muslim race. Right. So you'll see a group of Muslim men come together and invest in property
Yeah.
because they all have, you know, that basic understanding. You can't really go by like, you know, the color of our skin. Same thing with, you know, Europeans. Like you can't get a bunch of like random white people together and say, okay, you guys are going to do something because they don't have anything in common. So I think that's part of the issue as well.
Yeah.
Malik, I agree, but I also agree with this, right? You can't, we're talking about, if we stick to the conversation around race just for a second,
Right.
What other race continues to have a system or institution constantly give us a key and keep changing the lock?
Right.
So the key don't work no more. Every 10 years they change the lock. So we learn the game, but the game gets changed. But we're still expected to excel.
Great
Um,
Well, let me
Yeah.
throw something in there. Let me throw something because I like being unpopular sometimes. Let me throw something in there. So let's say, so the Asian culture, right?
Mhm.
They came in, they weren't really accepted. The locks were changed on them. What did they do? What did they do that was different?
Well,
For me, when I look and I say, okay, they got into some industry where there was high need, and then they moved into those communities of high need and supplied that need, and then grew in that community.
but what
You
they
know what I
also did, Davey, is that they are allowed to get minority loans.
Yep.
They can because they're foreigners, they can get a loan from
Mhm.
because that's what the federal government says we'll offer them. But for blacks, we can't get a minority. We can't get that type of loan. We're not foreigners. But we are.
I'll take that.
That's
I'll
true.
take that. That's true.
And then plus, like I said, they get tax breaks by coming from another country 7 years. So that's why the restaurants keep changing names every couple of years under new ownership because that's another 7 years of no taxes. And then, like I said, they finance themselves from China. They financing themselves. So I mean, and you said a key word, a need. If we could develop a need for someone, then because they came into our communities, started providing what we like to do. We like to eat. We like chicken wings. We like rice. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, that's some of the things that they kind of preyed on our communities. You know, they didn't typically go to the white communities, came in our communities again and set up shop.
It's not even funny, but do the Indians, besides going to be a doctor or an attorney, as they're getting their minority loan, is the franchise 7-Eleven just handing it over to them? Like we got another spot for you? Like it's ridiculous.
They have that liquid capital. They have the liquid capital too, because like I said, they funded themselves. And like I said, if you go Baskin Robbins, that's another one that a lot of Indians and like you said, you gotta have 200 plus liquid capital. We don't have that in our community, you know, and the people that have it, they're not gonna invest in those.
Well, they also broke up our family too. We used to have, it used to be a time where it was 4 generations of families, let's say 3 generations of family in the home, right? So now our focus is designed to push kids out at a certain age, as opposed to taking care of our elders, having that child being there for a period of time. So now you're keeping your money and your resources in the home, and you have more liquid capital to be able to support one another. And those other races, one of the things they didn't have a problem with was in America, they didn't have to go through that 400 years. And so that 400 years keeps some of our divisions. Even when Woodsy, you, my cousin, but you grew up over there, so we're not really rocking right now.
Right.
And so there's no sense of loyalty to one another in order for us to be able to make this work. And they play on that in programming because what they're going to show you on the news, what they're going to write in media, they're going to illuminate the issues in our community. But there are issues in the other community that far outnumber our issues.
Oh yeah.
As long as that's in our face and that's what we're hearing, it's the reason why television is called programming and why we don't own any major media market. Television, radio, none of that. And all that has to play a factor. That's your area, Doc, psychologically. That's why the military, before they go in any country to wage war, they send PSYOPs in to put programming in there. And that does have a psychological impact and effect on how you think and move.
Exactly.
Hey, listen, the other thing is this, like my stepfather's Nigerian, right? And I know growing up, he used to talk about Americanized, right? You being Americanized, basically you falling into like the materialistic traps, right? So if you look at our history, we came from slavery. You had some generations that migrated up north, and they would send for their other relatives, and they will stay in that house. They will pull their money, right? They will grow wealth, right? Send money back home, right? And if you look at immigrants, they do the same thing. So we're talking about like the Chinese food owner, the restaurant owner. There's probably like 5 different families living in that house, and they're all taking a shift. So that restaurant will stay open 24/7 because everyone's taking a shift, and it's all over the place. They're not worried about the materialistic stuff. They're worried about establishing wealth, right? And they have a foundation of like expectations, values, morals. So we got to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like I agree with you, Kelly. Like all of us are so busy trying to chase that American so-called dream, right? That we're sacrificing everything else. We're eating our living, you know,
But we know
and we're
this
being
now.
rewarded for it.
So, but Malik, we're educating our children. We're mentoring our children. We're teaching in schools. We know this, and yet we're still having the same problem. Either we're not doing it right, or it's because we're 400 years in the hole, we just that slow. Is that what you're saying?
I think there's some systematic things in place that are on a policy level that have to change. All right. I mean, listen, look at COVID, right? If you look at like from our diets, right, our health issues, COVID had a direct effect because we were at the lower rung of that, right? So those are the same issues that we're still facing today. It's like, yo, systematically things have to change, and then our mentality has to change as well. And I think that happens with that next generation. You know, I know for me, there was an expectation that was placed on me from my parents, my forefathers, right? And I place that same expectation on my children. You know, like you have to do better than that next generation. You're standing on the shoulders of giants. So it's like, yo, we got to this point. We're gonna hand the baton to you, and you take it a little further.
Well, Malik, what happens sometimes, because sometimes in our generation, sometimes, you know, we kind of pass that buck. A lot of times they didn't have the knowledge to teach, you know, the people coming up about the, you know, the means of a dollar, or, you know, about generations ago. What do you do about those people who didn't have that knowledge that you might have?
I think one of the challenges that we face in our community is pride. You know, if I don't know anything, then I'm gonna keep it to myself because I'm too prideful to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of programs. Listen, I know when my kids were going to college, right? There's so many scholarship opportunities out there that go untapped because people are just unaware of it.
Yeah.
You know, so instead of asking for help, they would just go without. You know, and there are programs out there. There's money out there that will assist, that will help. We gotta like be willing to like say, I don't know. Well, can you help me?
Yeah. Mhm.
Russ, I love that question. And Malik, great answer. One of the things I wonder about sometimes, even with our kids, sometimes we push them to college because let me be real, college isn't for everybody. It doesn't mean everybody not smart enough to go to college. But we come from a group of people who was extraordinarily gifted in agriculture and the trades, right?
Mhm.
I push them to go to college, and if I don't get those scholarships, I'm $100,000 in debt to go work for a company and make $35,000, which to me is hustling backwards.
Right.
At the
Mhm.
same time, we get away from, because again, I think college is definitely got its place, but we got to put things in perspective and really understand that what is it from a gift standpoint that my child may have that I can make sure I tap into for them. And like, for instance, technology, we going into the age of digital revolution. I could send a kid to a community college. He can graduate. I just had 2 kids in one of my programs making 85 grand and they only have a 2-year degree and they have no debt. Yet when I was talking to another mom, she, oh no, he's going to college. Like, we've really got it. Again, that goes back to ego and pride. Is
Mhm.
this about positioning to be successful, or is this about you living your dream?
I got a question.
And
Exactly.
you know, you make a great point, Kelly, because it's all about providing that information. Like, you have that information, you sharing that information, you know, and going from there. That's a great point, though. Definitely.
But I also think it's about exposure. So it's like, Kelly, I love that. It's like, but how many people know, hey, you know what? I could go to a 2-year institution,
Right.
learn computer programming, be an electrician, be a plumber, and make as much as somebody who goes for a 4-year degree. Because in our community, our formula was, hey, once again, growing up, my mother used to say there's a gap between somebody that has a high school education versus an associate's versus a bachelor's, master's, PhD, and the gap in income starts growing the higher up you have in education. So that's always been the mentality. So of course, if we are trying to like give our kids the best opportunity for success, we're gonna push college. And
Hey,
until
but
somebody comes along and says, hey, you know what? You can make more money doing this versus doing that.
but you know, here's the deal too in our community. All right, and like I said, you know, in the beginning, white is right. You know, not, you know, my homeboy Andre, he went to HBCU, A&T. And I
My
think
daughter goes there
that's
now.
what hurts a lot of our community. We don't want to go. If you say go to a community college, it's like a slap in the face to some people. If you tell them to go to a HBCU, it's a slap in the face. Unless you go to like a major D1 school or, you know, a prominent school, it's like people that like, oh, it's like you a failure. But like I said, we got to change that dynamics in our community because, like you said, if you say, hey, I'm going to become an automobile tech, people gonna laugh at you. You're going to be a plumber, people gonna laugh at you, even though those skills are falling short. We're falling short of those skills because we're mindset. We've been programmed. Don't go to do a trade. Go to a 4-year school, but don't go to a HBCU. Don't go to a community college. You got to go to the prominent where the lighter skinned people go. You know, and like I said, to be successful. And I think that's why, you know, like I said, those programs out there. But like I said, it's like a slap in the face when you tell somebody, hey, go to a 2-year school versus a 4-year school out the gate, knock out some of your debt, then go to get your BSN or whatever in nursing or whatever, what have you. You know, start the 2-year, then go to 4-year. But like I said, we got to start with mindset and educate ourselves and say, hey, it's okay to have a plumbing, you know, certificate or HVAC. Because all of us right now, it's getting cold. We calling an HVAC person, hey, we need our job fixed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we in our communities, we kind of shun stuff like that, man. You know, like I said, it's out there for the taking, but we kind of we frown upon it, and we just got to think the mindset.
But
I think you know we gotta be humble.
Yeah.
In order to be versatile, and I always say to be black is to be versatile. You have to. When I teach people, I teach. Look, I am a doctor. People call me doctor. Okay, fine. I'm an educator, whatever. But I also hustle. I mean, I buy Xbox X and I flip it real quick. I mean, that's what I do. And I make sure that my kids see that, because it doesn't matter. Way back in the past, this has been an argument for centuries: trade versus education. You know, you got this side, you got the other side, but we no longer have to pick. I mean, I can get trained in a trade to help pay for my school. You know what I mean? And I can just be taking one class per semester until I get that degree, just in case, oh, look, I'm a masseuse and I broke my hand. Now I got to go with plan B. And I think that's really where we have to get at is teaching versatility. But like speaking, a lot of you guys said, you have to be humble in order to do that. I mean, I love the fact that if I buy something and I flip it, my kids see that and they're like, whoa, 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 but that thing was dope. Like, why wouldn't you keep an Xbox X? Everyone loves it. Well, they're selling it for $1,000. Why wouldn't I make money? I can make money on that, put it towards stocks and bonds or your future education or whatever, and be good. Even though I have a great job, but it's just it's that versatility, being humble, and really teaching the hustle. I mean, I think we kind of got away from teaching the hustle because we kind of looked down on it, like Charlamagne and Kelly said.
And you know, Kelly, it goes back to what you said. It's changing the mental programming of people. It's all about having that conversation, but instilling those programs that, you know, there's a different way of doing things. There's different avenues of doing things. So that's mental programming. That's just nature.
I got a question for you, Woodsy. And you said something about a black bank. There's still a couple of black banks out there, right?
Wait, say that one more time. I didn't hear you. Cutting out.
About the black bank. Okay? Has anyone tried to get a loan from a black bank? Any one of you guys?
No. No. Nope.
I want to know if the process is different. Like, do they say, "Hey, you're black and you're what?" Or do they look hard?
Yeah, I've gotten an SBA loan. No, like it hasn't been from like a black institution.
No.
I've tried, and I won't call a name out because I try to support. But all the fees and different things that they was trying to take me through, like I'm trying to support you and I'm bringing business to you from other people in the community, but you got all these other things tied and attached to it. So if you're about community, how are you not making it where it's available to the greater community, and you're making us jump through more hoops than if I went to a Bank of America or Wells Fargo, which I didn't want to go to.
Right.
So it kind of pushed me off of that one. And I'm sure it's somebody else out there that's willing to be able to accommodate certain things, and you don't have to spend as much to gain it. But I mean, I think that's a great question.
Hey, Kelly, are you talking about that bank in Atlanta?
No. This one, I'm just gonna say it's in North Carolina, because if I say we're at North Carolina, it's the only one there. So I don't want to call them out and give them bad publicity.
Uh-oh.
But I will say this one thing, like when I walked into the entrepreneur space, I was working in local government as a senior leader, right? Leading the place, 168 employees. And this old school elder came to me, said, look, let me tell you something. And so the story was this. He said, how did he word this?
The dramatic pause.
Yeah.
So what he said was,
Yeah.
So really what I'm saying is this elder came to me. He told me, look, if you want to be successful, you got to think differently. And so he said that he was in the break room with a couple other employees for a business, right? The owner of the business pulls up in the parking lot. He's driving an Aston Martin car. He walks out and they bragging in there, having conversations. When he get in, they say, "Hey, boss, that's a nice car." What he told them was, and this boss has no formal education, but he has great street smarts and great emotional intelligence. He said, "If you keep working hard, Woozy, you too can help me get another one next year." And it changed the way I thought about things. I'm like, whoa, like that's pretty deep. Like
Right.
I am, because it's our intellectual capital and property that's driving companies to be successful.
Yep.
And when we switch and have that conversation with young people, like you can't just go to school just to come somewhere to be a manager, because you went to that 4-year school to be a boss. So you work there, but you also, to Woozy's point earlier, I need you to start learning to hustle for yourself. And when your hustle outweighs what you're making here, then you can leave
Right.
and you can get 2 hustles at that point.
Right.
But we gotta switch the mindset in order to elevate the condition. And then we gotta start talking about what generational wealth is.
Yep.
Mhm.
Amen.
And that brings us to like what I was trying to talk about earlier. It was about, I know we're going through COVID with this administration, and I know they touched upon about reparations, but I think that has to be looked at after we deal with COVID. What do y'all think about that? Because that needs to be addressed.
I think that's gonna get weaponized. And you mentioned reparations. It's just like defund the police, right? Sounds good at a protest, but the other side now weaponizes that, to use it against you. So,
But I mean, it was a major conversation when they had the debates. When the Democratic Party was having the debates, they touched upon it. I know people were going on, what's that show with Charlamagne the God and the Breakfast Club, and the first question they were asking them is, "What do you think about reparations for Black people?" And they answered that, so their feet was to the fire. So I think we need to revisit that conversation, weaponized or not, because that needs to be addressed.
I think
Get
if
out
it's
of these
coming in
holes
other forms,
financially and start
like education loans or business loans or housing loans, I
yeah.
can see it. But if you talk about, I'm going to send a check to every Black American. Just
Right.
if you can
Not
trace,
doing that.
listen, if
They
you
ain't
can
doing that.
trace your
I agree.
heritage back to slavery. So that's number one. So
Yeah.
think about that.
Okay, I got you.
All these people propping up saying, I could trace your heritage back to slavery. So they're going to get paid from that. Give me like 10% of your reparations check. So I can trace that back. So one, you got to trace your heritage back, right? They got to now send you a check, right? They send you a check, then what?
Got you.
I didn't get a stimulus check, right? So I don't know who did,
I
but
didn't
ask them where that check is.
I got you.
Like, are you satisfied now? You got this $1,200 check. Did that satisfy all your needs? No.
Like
Yeah.
I'm part. Now
That's
I
straight
hear you,
up.
Boogie.
It's gonna be like this. You get
Yeah,
that.
then they're gonna
check,
be
it's a
like, yo,
wrap.
I don't
It's
want
a
to hear
wrap.
anything
Don't
about slavery,
ask.
or because we
I
gave
got-
you a check. What you
Right.
got?
Don't ask for affirmative action. Don't
Right.
ask.
Nothing.
I got some.
Yep.
Hold on, I got something for that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my suggestion would be like you have different options to it, not a lump sum payout. Maybe it might depend on your situation. Like for example, hey, look, X amount of money might be going back to, maybe I can attend an HBCU if I want to do that. Monies can be about if I want to purchase some land, having options. I don't want a lump sum payment paid out to me. I would like options involved with the reparations.
Hey, Russ,
Option
check
A,
out
B, or C.
Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
They invented a form of reparations to their community, where I think they allowed some of the original settlers there, from slavery, to purchase homes at a discounted rate, and things of that nature. So check out that article. I can't remember all of it off the top of my head, but that's what they did versus everybody getting a check.
There you go. So they had options. You as good as your options, as Chris Rock said, you as good as your options. So
Right,
I like having the options
Yeah.
in terms of reparations.
Right.
Option A through option Z.
Check that out.
Okay, I don't like the lump sum, but I like
Right,
having
right,
options.
right. Yeah, that'd be a disaster.
I think
But having options?
No. But the lump
Getting a
sum.
check.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
check don't work,
All right.
yeah.
when it comes to COVID, we got to be careful because Malik and I was talking about this before you guys came on, and we're not going to talk about this long because I want to let people know we're not going to have another Black Coffee conversation until after the New Year.
Okay.
But if they don't sign this release on the 10th, do you think Trump is going to sign this fund 10th? And if he doesn't sign it, the federal government shuts down. What do you think is going to happen then?
I think it's going to go through because at this point, we're talking about Trump's legacy here and what it's going to say in the history books about him. I know it seems dumb, but I know what you're saying.
It's
But
gonna be a blank page.
hear me out.
It'll be a
Hear me
blank
out.
page, man.
So I forgot what he was going to do, but the legacy is one of the biggest things ever for a president. And so in order to, if you were going to do anything to mess up that legacy, it's not going to happen. It's a wrap for them. So
I don't think he's signing it.
huh?
I don't think he's signing it.
Yeah.
And you think he's going to let the government go?
I think Trump is the kind of person
Yeah,
like,
crazy.
I'm out.
Shit's right. Yeah, he cares less about legacy. He doesn't care.
Yeah,
about
he don't care about that.
You know what?
He don't care about being president.
I'm gonna wait till the new year. I might sound real stupid right now. I get it. You can razz me. You call me donkey of the day. I get it. But I think when it comes down to it, that legacy is really gonna, and what they put on those history books, that's what's gonna weigh on his mind. That's the same reason why I thought way back in the day where he was trying to put money in the Black communities, trying to fix that legacy. That's all that's about.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't know about that one.
who cares about legacy.
Yeah, I don't think he care about it.
And
Yeah, he don't care.
yeah, one of the conversations we were having is like COVID has hit all around the country. So states and cities are now being affected because they see a lack in their tax revenue. Right. So what that means is now, and I'm sure you're affected by this, right? If you don't have your tax revenue, then you're gonna have to start cutting services or start cutting employees, right?
Mhm.
If they don't sign this on the 10th, not only does the government get shut down because they don't have a budget for the new year, and that relief, like families who have been affected by COVID don't have that relief, right? Whether it's small businesses or like regular, households. So that was our conversation, right? And I don't think Trump cared. I think he's a narcissist and he only cares about himself.
Exactly.
So if this doesn't affect him, then he don't care. Listen, he still think the election was stolen from him.
Right.
He doesn't think it was stolen from him.
We had certification, 15 like, electoral college votes on this, and he's still crying like this election was stolen.
Crying about a refund.
So I'm gonna be the brother that get booted out of the barbershop come January, right? Like you gotta go. Like you were wrong, you gotta go. Okay, we're gonna do this. But if I win, you ain't never gonna hear the end of it. I'm gonna change my name and everything.
When we come back in January, we're gonna see. We're gonna see
Yeah.
you're optimist, which is good.
I want to welcome Dale Weston. Please welcome a good brother of mine, Dale Weston. And
What's
up, fellas?
Yeah.
I'm just here to listen. Please continue.
So if we are not going to get this stimulus for us to resume as a country, where does that leave our communities, or where does that leave us individually? Because we were talking about this earlier, that we need to come together as a community, because individually some may be okay,
Mhm.
but a lot won't.
And I will say it leaves, I mean, being in small town government, if we don't have that budget, it's continuously cutting services, which is what Malik said, continuous. So it will be, am I my brother's keeper, literally, if those services get cut.
It should be that way anyways, though, brother.
Right, I totally agree, but you're really gonna find out how good of friends you got.
No money out there. We're gonna see you close, right?
Yeah, right.
I love it.
Hey, Woodsy, you got the bigger lawn. We're gonna come to your house for barbecue anyway.
You know what? We
Hey, pop-up
we can
tent,
all
baby,
raise the
pop-up tent.
roof on my property and get some. Yeah, you're welcome to it. You just can't. You gotta buy your own food though.
You know, a lot of the things that we talk about doesn't normally get discussed in public. And that's civil rights, where Black people victimized because of civil rights. We hold ourselves as victims. How come we haven't funded our own community? We talked about these things today, and it has an effect because we all have our own opinions. And like what you said, Malik said, we're not monolithic. We all come from different areas of the country and different backgrounds, and we all have ideas. And that's Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things I would love to touch on is why don't we fund our own communities? You know what I'm saying? Why aren't more of us coming together to, create a Black America? We talk about it.
Yeah, it's called trust. We don't have enough trust within our own group.
I'd say
make something like that happen.
So, is that built into us?
No, it's trauma.
Trauma, yeah.
But you know what? Like, here's my question, right? What's that vision? What does that look like? So, Brian, what does that look like to you?
To me, that's Black owned. You know what I'm saying? That's Black communities. You know what I'm saying? There's Black programs that help Black people out. You know what I'm saying? Black youth program. It's Black people helping Black people out. To me, you know what I mean? That's really good. I don't care how I can help you out. Let me help you in some way. That's what I see. That doesn't necessarily monetary, right? It could be knowledge. You know what I'm saying? How can we help each other out? That's the thing that I want to try to put together and build on.
But Brian, I agree with you. But when you go and give someone a product, there are always some Black people always want like to hook me up. You crazy? I work for this. You better pay me what you owe me. That's what my gift is. But they always want the hookup.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's my friend, he cuts my hair. I make sure I pay him and tip him. That is his job. Just because he's my friend doesn't mean I shouldn't hook him. I shouldn't pay his fees. You know what I'm saying? And tip him for the good job that he did. I think we all thought more of like that. That would literally take us to a different level.
Yeah, kind of going back to like some of these points, like I think the one thing COVID has done is it's destroyed like the small businesses, especially the small minority businesses, right? We are being affected more than any other groups out there,
I'm gonna have to pause you on that one. I talked to a lot of small startup companies, Black owned, white owned, Chinese owned. It's all about innovating right now. What COVID has done is taught businesses you have to start innovating. I mean, doing like how you've always done it, it ain't gonna work no more, man. Restaurants crying about not having people come inside. Do delivery, do curbside. You could still get your food out there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, retail, go online. You can sell more online because there's more people in the world to talk you can get in front of. So I don't understand when people say it's hurt those types of businesses. I'm trying to figure out how did it hurt. To me, I think it leveled them up. It gave them a chance to take some of this government money. They didn't pump some of it. They ain't giving a lot of it. But some government money they're pumping in it. And take a little time to think about what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? What the process is, and then try to figure out how can they do better. Because this is only the beginning of a virus coming out like this to create this. I mean, there'll be another virus coming out, God knows, 10, 15 years down the road, whatever it may be. The ideal is to put something in place now. If this ever happens again, you're already set. You know what I'm saying? You already have a to-go bag ready to go. Does that make sense?
Okay, so what I'm gonna say is this. Depends on, because you're in Fargo, so I'm not sure what the Black businesses are in Fargo.
Yeah.
I'm here in like New York and Brooklyn, and I see the effects, right? I know pre-COVID what was here, post-COVID what's not here anymore, right? And for me, I think, we have a government. I'm an independent, so let me just say that. No, I'm an independent, but I also feel like the role of government is to be a safety net. So there's no other time right now than us needing a safety net. right? So yeah, the PPP loans were great, but if you know the history of that, you know, like small businesses didn't get it. You got like mom and pop businesses that'll probably have like 1 or 2 employees, right? And they're probably working off the book. They weren't eligible for that PPP loan, right? So they're out of business.
That's
So,
what I was going to hit
corporations
on.
got that money, and like Rock Nation got like I think 50 million, something like that. I don't think they needed it, but they got it.
That's what I was going to hit on is realizing where we are at locationally. Fargo and where I'm at, you know, North Dakota is a pretty new state.
Yeah.
So they were able to do a lot of different things. I mean, Fargo, North Dakota did a lot of creative things to get their products pushed out. But I know the East Coast, my family's on the East Coast, there's a lot of established businesses. And we're talking about businesses that were there for decades and a limited amount of space. So, I mean, dealing with those types of things is a little different. I agree. Businesses do have to be more versatile. They have to be. And that's one of the positives that did come out of COVID. But when those old cities, Charlotte, New York, Philadelphia, it's real tough to be versatile when you're working with a limited amount of resources, limited amount of space, and you're not receiving the funds that the bigger businesses are doing. So yeah, I'll just end with that.
Well, I'm not going to keep
Both sides now, man.
What?
No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
I'm not going to keep everything too long. This is an hour show. Many blessings for you guys coming on. Again, we're going to have another Black Coffee conversation till after the year. So I want to say everything publicly right now, and I'll talk to you guys individually. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and I love you all. Thank you so much. Anything you want to say before we take off?
Yo, happy New Year, happy holidays, brothers. Right? Stay safe. See you in the new year. Right?
Oh,
Listen, let me mention this. I saw Chad stuff, right, in Fargo. Right? You guys don't wear masks. I saw like people working out in his gym. Mask on.
Let me tell you this right now, brother.
Yo, Woody, I see you at like the events and stuff. I don't see no mask. I'm like, yo.
Okay. So back in the, if you think I posted, I'm gonna tell you right now. In Fargo, I just drove past. I just drove around town to different restaurants. The mall was packed. Every restaurant was packed. These people act like it don't exist, bro. They want to catch it so they can get rid of it so they can get back to going out. It's insane to me, man.
That is the mentality here, and let it be on record. I am 6 feet apart. I am more than 6 feet apart. If I'm any closer, I have an N95. I ain't playing. I ain't trying to go out like that. So, blessings to all you. Happy New Year. Happy holidays.